there are things that just kind of underline success, right? So if you aren't healthy, taking care of yourself, like that's what it is. You have to like, I know this is corny, but the whole like put your oxygen mask on first, because if not, you can't do anything else. So, when I was younger, before I had kids, I was just kind of running in this way that you could be burnt out, right? Like, who cares? You could like eat unhealthy, you don't need to sleep. I used to just sit and work for like 10 hours a day, and it's just not possible for me to do that anymore. So, yeah, I think like changing one's perspective on health and what's important.
Hey there, it's Ginny.
And I'm Monica.
And this is Hitting Her Mark,
a podcast for women in the arts, actors, filmmakers, artists who are passionately chasing their creative dreams,
while juggling the beautiful chaos of caring for those they love.
We're here to share stories, insights, and inspiration, proving that you can hit your mark without compromising what matters most.
So if you're ready to make your creative dreams a reality, let's dive in.
We're very excited to welcome today's guest. She's an award-winning documentary filmmaker known for her human-focused storytelling. Her work includes Take a Walk on the Wild Side, One Leg In, One Leg Out, the Canadian Screen Award-winning Sex with Sue, and the more recent Degrassi Whatever It Takes documentary, which premiered at TIFF this year. Her films highlight voices and experiences that are often overlooked. It's a pleasure to have her on the show. Please welcome Lisa Rideout. Lisa!
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. This is so exciting.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to speak to you.
Yes, and we like to sort of kick off every episode starting at the beginning. So when did your path into filmmaking begin for you?
Yeah, I am so bad with dates, so I won't tell you a date, but I will tell you a story, which I am better at. I was actually about to do my PhD in critical media and cultural studies at TMU. And so I had been in academia. I had been studying imagery and kind of focusing on how nonprofits represented the developing world. It's very wordy, but it was basically like commercials and the imagery that I found problematic. And so I had been studying that for years, was about to do a PhD. I went to a conference called Neglected Media, which for an academic, I was like, this is going to be exciting. And it was so boring and so dry. And it was my moment where I was like, I don't think I can do this for the rest of my life. Like, I am not going to get through my PhD. And it's quite isolating because you're working by yourself a lot. And I also just found it very exclusive. Like, there's a lot of things about academia I didn't love. So I decided to do the documentary media program at TMU instead, which was kind of my turn into film.
Oh, amazing. And how did you know, like, specifically, like, you focused in on documentary media. How did you know early on that this was specifically the path you wanted to go on? Like, what was it about documentary filmmaking that drew you in?
I mean, I think it was a natural transition from academia because I was writing about the real world. I was looking at images that were, I guess you could call them documentary. So it made sense at that point in time. And yeah, I love the medium of documentary. I think a lot of us do. It's so popular right now because you're able to tell, stories about quote unquote real people. And I think, yeah, it's just incredible. So it was like the natural transition. And that's not to say that I won't now jump and make like a narrative film, but that was the right step at that point.
When you were little, like, did you ever see yourself in this type of world? Like, I know you were on this academia path, but was there this little side of you, this little twinkle that was like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny. I try to think back because I do like when things are really hard when you're making a film. I'm like, I'm making a film about Degrassi. Like, that's incredible. I used to watch this growing up, and you have to kind of pause and think about that. So I don't know. I think like in grade 6 when you picked, I was like, oh, I want to be an actress, and I had to draw this thing, and it was like a big stage, and I was on it, and I was like, okay, that's come to fruition in like a different way. But I will say that like my mom was a photographer in a certain way, and we always had a lot of photographs around us. And my first job ever was at the Loblaws Photo Lab. when people
Oh,
still had film.
Yes.
yes, I
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah, totally. So they were bringing in those disposable cameras, like that was mostly it. And I was developing them and I was color correcting them. So there's something in like I had a strip of film that I was going through, I was color correcting it and just like very connected to images in a certain way. So I do think there's a connection. I didn't go to a school. I grew up in Canada, which is a suburb outside of Ottawa that did not have a film program. Like there was nothing of the sorts. So it wasn't really a possibility. But I will say, like, my cousin, I have family that was in New York City that grew up there, and she was in films when she was young. And I do think that kind of like opened the world a little bit to us as like kids in the suburbs outside of Ottawa.
So it's like early exposure into that possibility as a career.
Totally.
Right.
Mhm.
And now, I mean, Ottawa's got such a big film scene. So
Yeah,
it's
totally.
come such
Totally.
a long way.
Yes, yes.
What made you decide, I guess, because you wanted to follow that path to go to Toronto?
Yeah, you know what? I had an aunt in Toronto. And again, we weren't like downtown Ottawa. I was in the suburbs, like as suburban as one can get my whole life until I was 18. And I was just so ready to leave the suburbs because I had family that were in cities, that were in Toronto, that were in New York
Mm.
City. So I tried actually to go to NYU, I think, at one point, but I was not a good student. That's another thing too. Um, not. So there's hope. Like I almost failed always school until I got to grade 12 and I was like, "Oh, I should probably turn this around to go to university." But then I was like, "Oh, I have to write SATs to go to the States. That's not happening." So, I actually applied to school for journalism and writing at that point, and I ended up at York University for my undergrad. And yeah, just really wanted to be in a big city.
So what was the big like professional experience? Like where your first professional I know that you worked at the Canadian Film Center in the production
Mhm.
office, which probably gave you exposure to sort of larger film productions. Like what was that first professional experience that led you even to that or was that the first? And how did it prepare you like for moving forward?
Yeah, that was the first. That's pretty incredible. And I'm so grateful that right after I graduated, I think it was the summer after I graduated, I got that job. I started as the junior production coordinator. And, making documentaries, you're often a small team. So when I was at TMU, when I made my thesis film, I did everything. So I was shooting, I was doing sound, directing, producing without knowing what producing was at the time and editing. And then I got to the Canadian Film Center and I was like, oh, it's still like a space where people are learning, but there are actual like crews and sets. And, it's run very professionally from what I saw with being on set with everyone. So that was really eye opening to me, um, and showed me like the possibilities. And then just even being exposed to, I don't know, scripts and call sheets and all kind of those like hard, tangible things that one needs to make films,
Mhm.
was such a learning experience for me. So yeah, that was pretty incredible and really the first kind of professional experience I had. And then while I was there, I was also making documentaries on the side. So with like some of my classmates, we would just, any point we could make films. I think one of the first ones was about Captain John's seafood restaurant. Oh, is that what
Yes.
it's called?
Was it the
Do you
boat? Was
remember
that the boat?
yes.
The boat
Yes.
downtown.
It's
Yeah,
not there anymore,
yeah.
I don't think. I don't think it's there anymore, right?
No,
Yeah.
no, it's not there anymore. My friend Corinne and I, and this is all like obviously volunteer. It's like us bringing out our cameras, trying to make films. And we made a film about him trying to like hold on to this boat and keep it there and um, kind of like fighting what was going on. And I mean, obviously he didn't win because the boat is now gone.
Right.
But yeah, we got to go on the boat. It was a pretty incredible thing to film. And so I was doing that and then a bunch of things on the side, making films, making kind of commercial films for hospitals as well with another friend of mine, Ryan from school. And that all led up to Take a Walk on the Wild Side which was my first financed film. So I kind of like put together a portfolio myself with people that I knew, and then with the goal of, getting a film financed. And that was the first one.
How did that go? Like, how did you go from even figuring out like who's gonna give me money for this? Who should I pitch to? How can you talk a little bit about that process?
Yeah, for sure. I wish that fund still existed. It doesn't, but it was amazing. It was called Bravo Factual. There's a Bravo Fact and a Bravo Factual that funded
Okay.
short films, which is really rare in Canada. And so I also had like incredible mentors at the time. There's a producer, Lauren Grant, who I connected with through the Canadian Film Center, and a friend of mine, Charles Officer, and they both came on as EPs, I think, on that film. And yeah, I think that's like mentorship is so huge because it's true. You don't know really what to do when you're starting.
Mm-hmm.
And so people did help direct me. And so I applied to that and yeah, I got it. I think I knew it existed just because there was so few funding opportunities for short films. So it's like everyone applied for Bravo Factual. And then we were lucky enough to get it. And yeah, we just went from there.
And Lisa, was that before or after you formed Lifted Eyes Media? Was Lifted Eyes Media sort of the first? Was that your way in? As also, I have this production company. We want to make this short. Is that where it started?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
yeah, I definitely I founded that before we got financing for the film.
Yeah. So, okay. So, Take a Walk on the Wild Side. It was a documentary short which came out in 2017. It premiered at Hot Docs, and it profiles a Toronto cross-dressing store and its owner, Patty. It won a
Mhm.
Canadian Screen Award for Best Short Documentary. What was the process of sort of building trust with the people featured in the film? Because, it can be a sensitive topic. Describe how you sort of navigated that.
Yeah, it's a good question. That's crazy. It was like 10 years ago too,
Yeah.
almost. Um, it took a lot of time. So I think how I connected, I was in Patty's store scouting it for a different film shoot and just connected with her. And she's incredible. She's a big presence and her store is incredible. And it is just, it's like a pillar in the community in Toronto. And I was kind of surprised that no one had made a film about this space
Mm.
before. So, because, Patty was kind of our anchor, she was like, oh, I think like these people could potentially be interested in being filmed. But then, I would sit with them, I would talk with them, go out to dinner, and you just spend time with people. I think, especially with something that is so sensitive, and they may have not have told their families that this is what they're doing, and even just understanding kind of the variety of experiences of people that go into the store and why they do that was really important. So, um, Patty was someone that had trust with these people, and then I
Yeah.
would have, conversations. So I think that's so important with us, documentary filmmaking, because they
Mhm.
have to feel comfortable. And as much as you tell someone what it's going to be like when the cameras go up, it can be quite different when they do.
There's such a
Yeah,
respect. There's
absolutely.
such a mutual respect in that process. And
Mhm.
like, it was beautiful, like seeing how Patty
Thank you.
interacts with her customers. It was really special.
Did you did you feel obligated to share? Like, did they ask to watch any of it before it was officially released?
Oh, that is a good question. It feels so long ago. I'm sure I showed Patty. I usually do.
Okay.
I don't want, people to be like thrown off or see it for the
Hmm.
first time if they don't want to on the big screen. But I imagine Patty and I would have watched it before the big premiere.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great, and that's all
Mm.
part of building trust, right? And you don't want
Totally.
any backlash or whatever, because it's real life stories.
Totally. Yeah.
Lisa, when you started Lifted Eyes Media, did you have an idea already in your head what the vision of this production company was going to be, what kind of projects you were going to make, in terms of subject matter, even? Because you really choose some
Mm.
sort of challenging subject matters, and I find it so interesting. So did you know that starting out, or did you just kind of figure it out as you go? How was that for you, that process?
I want to say that like I knew exactly, but gosh, I feel like I was young too, but I founded Lifted Eyes Media because I'm like, I think you need a production company to like make
Right.
things, rather than like, and I am a filmmaker and like an artist. And then I feel like you quickly understand you should be a business person as well, but it might
Mm,
not be the most
yeah.
natural of things.
Yeah.
So no, there's a lot of learning that has gone into my production company up until this day. But I will say, like, I've always been drawn to films and stories that are about like incredible women, in particular, who kind of push boundaries or that don't live inside like societal constraints. So that's always been my guiding star. And I think we have more of them now, but maybe at that point, like character driven. So, like, Take a Walk on the Wild Side, where you're following people around, you kind of feel like you're in the space versus like this sit down academic like
Mm,
talk. And I think that comes because I left academia. So I really was like, I don't want anything to do with academia anymore. It felt very disconnected from emotions. Like, I think that's one of the problems that I had with this space. Because it was like your emotions weren't meant to be in your papers, in your research. And so,
right.
and I had to watch so many academic documentaries too that it's not what I want to make anymore. So, yeah, I do, when possible, because it's not always possible, like really try to have emotion lead the story. So I don't know, maybe that's jumbled, but that was kind of like
No.
I think like I instinctually knew what films would be under my production company, but I
Mhm.
didn't, write a business plan at the beginning of the process.
Yeah. Well, sometimes the best way to figure out what you do want is to figure out very early on what you don't want to do.
Mm, it's a
And
good
I think
point.
that's what academia did for you.
Totally. I know.
And then so then what was the next film? Was that the One Leg In, One Leg Out? Was that your
hmm
next?
Yeah, that was the next. And that was, again, kind of organic, where Iman, who is in that film, we actually filmed with her for Take a Walk on the Wild Side, but like it just didn't work in the film, which was really heartbreaking for me.
Mm,
But then, we were like, okay, we had this relationship and Iman and I really got along and she wanted to tell her story, right? So that's a big part of it too. It's like, whoever is in your film has to trust you and they have to want to be open about everything. And
mhm.
so that was the natural next one for me.
Yeah, and what a
Yeah.
powerful story.
Yeah, and that just for the audience focuses on a transgender woman who has been a sex worker and wants to go back to school to become a social worker, which is so interesting.
Mhm.
And how did you even navigate, like, what was the challenges of getting that specific film made?
I mean, getting it made in terms of financing was not hard, to be honest. Like,
Okay.
on that side, like I worked with CBC Short Docs, and yeah, they were incredible. I feel like they came on pretty fast. So that was great. That part of it was great.
That's
And then
amazing.
filming, got it. Am I just like looking back with rose tinted glasses? I'm like, yeah, it was great. Everything was
It was so
Not
easy.
a
easy.
problem at all. It was simple.
Yeah. But I'm
Anyone
like,
can
I'm
do
sure
it.
after I finish it, I was like, I'm never making a film again. That's always like the thing when you finish it. But you know
But
what?
sometimes when it's aligned, it's aligned. I feel like it was a natural, like, sort of segue, so, you figured out a lot of the stuff perhaps with Walk on the Wild Side and,
Yeah, we
you were
could go
able
with,
to just
yeah.
go with
I mean, you know
that.
what I think it is? It's because it was a short too. So now that I'm in this like world of features, I'm like, oh, we shot for 5 days and edited for like 2 months, no problem.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm sure at that time, I mean, logistically, it's always challenging making documentaries. Like small things that even I can remember, like our gear going up and down her elevator, and also at one point, I feel like I've told this story before, like because Iman used to deal drugs. That's in the film. So she would
Yes. I
have
think this is
people
what I was
knocking on her
wondering
door.
about. Yeah,
Yeah,
like this component.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, people would knock on her door, like looking for I remember at one point, and we have like really expensive camera gear in there, right? And so people are knocking, like looking for drugs, and then seeing that we're shooting something. Um, and at one point she was like, "Go away, we're shooting a porn." So there were like people that came to the door, and I remember being like, "Oh, is this okay?" But it was fine. I mean, it was her home and we got through it. But I think that was the only challenging part of it, or the
Yeah.
most challenging part of it. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And then you also went on, I mean, there's so many, and I do want to focus in more on some of the more recent projects, but I do want to touch on them lightly. Is the His Nose, Her Eyes, Whose Face, which was more of a personal film
Mhm.
for you. It was a stop motion animated reflection on mixed race identity. How did your personal experience of being mixed race influence your storytelling with this documentary?
So one of the first, I want to say films, but films I made when I was in school was about being mixed race. And it was like, it was so bad when I think about it now, but it was like my first time using a camera and all that stuff. And I filmed it. Was my sister was in it, and two friends of mine. But I knew that I always wanted to return to the subject matter when I
Hmm.
could. And stop motion animation, like just exploring a different medium of storytelling too, I wanted to do because you want to change it, I think, as you go. And so returning to that subject matter, working with CBC again, which was incredible. And then, yeah, just knowing it was a story that I wanted to tell eventually, it felt like the right time and to do something because stylistically, Take a Walk on the Wild Side and One Leg In, One Leg Out are similar. So it
Hmm.
was kind of breaking that style and going into this. So, yeah, that was great. It was like finding the right participants and families. I think we did a call out and then just saw who responded.
Yeah, was there a big response?
Yeah, I think there was a big response. Obviously, there's a lot of mixed people in Toronto, which is where we filmed it. Um, which is funny too, because like also I grew up in, again, like the suburbs. There was one mixed person. And I remember like I look at a diary entry that I did in grade 4, and I had a crush on him, Ben Ing, who
Mm.
was
Then
mixed. Yeah. And I was like in my diary, I have a crush on him. He's brown like me. Like I had no idea, right? Because it was just like, oh, someone else that is mixed who has darker skin in this place where like everyone is white. So,
Mm.
yeah, it was nice to kind of come back to it and think like, oh, this is much more common as well,
Mhm.
but it's not in lots of places. So that, yeah, my personal story influenced that. And then finding the right people to be in it. The stop motion animation was like really eye opening to for me because I hadn't done it before. I obviously did do it. We had Martha Grant, who is incredibly talented. But I just remember she quoted me like how much time everything was going to take. And I was like, really? Like it's going to take this long? And then watching her do the work, I'm like, oh, of course. Like this is how long it was going to take. So that was cool to see, and then be able to kind of pull in like metaphors with the stop motion was fun, and just like, oh, I love it. If I had like so much money to do that again, but be able to like go out and buy all these props and bring them in and figure out how we're going to tell the story with them was very cool.
That's so cool. Okay, let's touch on. I mean, you've also done episodic, so that's probably a whole different. Moving into adapting your documentary approach to a more structured episodic TV
Mm.
format, that must have been an interesting challenge. Maybe, I don't know. How did you find that experience? Because you did This Is
For
Pop.
This Is Pop. Yeah.
Yes,
This
yeah.
is pop, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? Like the mentor. So I mentioned Charles Officer, who was an incredible director, and he when I think before Take a Walk on the Wild Side, he showed me like how to make a shot list, and I don't know, all of these tools, like all of these documents that came in handy when I got to make a TV episode. So I wasn't, I think people make documentaries in different ways, but it was always structured for me. Like I always
Mhm.
had kind of a quote unquote script or like an idea, a shot list. Um, so it wasn't like a huge leap to have to deliver. And I was working with CBC, so you have to deliver a treatment. Like you have to have these
Mm.
tangible things in place
Mhm.
for people to give you money. So it was just kind of longer. That's what it was. Um, I'm trying to remember. I think like a 50-minute episode. And I was working with a writer, and that was different because I had always been the writer.
Okay.
So it was more of a collaboration. It was a bigger team. Like I had a team on these short documentaries, but it's like everything got bigger. And yeah, that was different for me. But I don't know. It's just like you apply what you were doing and it becomes longer and it's bigger. And I had an incredible writer that I was working with. So it was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you
That's
sort of
great.
treat each episode as sort of like a separate little documentary?
So I did one. There was a different director for each episode, which was cool. And they were all very different. So it wasn't like a series where an episode builds on each other. I went into it writing a very different episode than what we ended up doing, but we did one about protest music, which is
Yes.
up my alley. It worked out
Mm.
well. And it was, I mean, it's interesting because it's a bit chicken and egg, I think, with TV, where it's like, who can we secure in terms of talent? And then you're writing to that versus kind of like writing it first. So there was so many different ways that we could go with this, but some of the talent was on board before. So like Arlo Guthrie was attached to it. So
You had Hosier.
yeah, yeah. He might have come on a little bit later, but just the writing process and figuring it all out. And once famous people are involved, that was my first one with famous people.
Yeah.
Chuck D was
Yeah.
in it. Yeah, so it just is like a different beast.
Yeah.
You have, people who are like shy about being on camera before, and now I'm like, oh, I'm with people who have done interviews. I remember my Chuck D interview. I was like, oh, I'm so nervous. Like, because I look up all of the interviews and he's been on like 60 Minutes. He's been on like everything. Like anyone who has interviewed like really famous people has sat in front of him. So it's just like those firsts, right? So
Yeah.
like that being the first for me was nerve-wracking. And then it was like, oh, they're just people. They're
Right.
just
Yeah.
humans. Yeah. Yeah.
And you're trying to stay composed because you're the leader of the ship, essentially, right? You're like, it's cool. I've got
Totally.
this.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
So, as you're saying, this was like a longer format, the episodic. I'm going to take us into your more recent projects, because this is so exciting. Sex with Sue. So you did. This was I believe, your first feature documentary
Mhm.
about Sue Johansson, the iconic Canadian sex educator known for her radio and TV programs. You were director, writer, and producer on this project, and the film won a Canadian Screen Award for Best Documentary Program in 2023. Congratulations! What
Thank you.
was the most surprising or interesting thing that you learned about Sue?
Oh, I grew up watching her on television.
Yeah,
So I, right? We all
yeah,
did,
yeah.
I
Yeah,
think.
we learned a
Yeah.
lot.
Yes. So knew that she was on TV, but I think I knew that she had a radio show, but I didn't know that she had a clinic that people went to. I didn't kind of
Mhm.
know the work that she had done outside of being on television, to be honest. Um, so that was, yeah, incredible to see. I think like we now live in an era of social media and influencers and often people that do things for, I don't know, I don't want to say vanity, and not everyone, but like it's just different. Than Sue didn't want to be famous, right? Like she just used different mediums to talk about sex education. And that I think is like so refreshing in this time period. And also, I'm like, right, she deeply cared about this. And then it just led to her getting a platform on television. So that I did not know.
Yeah. And I felt like nothing was like too taboo, right? Like she was so approachable. You could ask her anything and it was like, sure, she'll give you the answer, like it never
Yeah.
felt, she was approachable.
Awkward or weird. Yeah, she was
Yeah.
approachable and she just gave it to you. So it alleviated your, or, like even with the audience member, right? We're just like, I don't know. I don't want to ask. I don't want to say this. And, but she'd just be like, it's matter of fact. There's nothing to
Totally.
be embarrassed
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. She like she would say, I mean, okay, so we went through so many obviously different episodes. Like I now am a sex expert, I feel like, from watching all of that. But even when she got prank calls, so like when it was so obviously a prank call, like I feel like there was one,
Oh
I don't know
no.
why it's just like coming to my head, of like having sex with a chicken or like some sort of food. It was some sort of food. And you would just know it was a prank call. She would answer it matter of fact
Hmm.
from a non-judgmental standpoint, because her perspective was like, okay, maybe this is a prank call, but someone else could have this question. And I think like that's a testament to who she is. It was like, you're never going to be laughing at a question that even could be like, you just know that this is someone lying or just like wanting to be on air. But she was so non-judgmental, and that was very
Mhm.
different than the sex education I got. And I think a lot of us that grew up without
Yeah.
social media, we had very different sex education. So she, yeah, just did such a great job. And it was, I think, it's hard to remember that we didn't have information kind of at our fingertips. It was like, how are we learning about sex education? It was our gym teachers. If you took out a book in the library, which,
You probably would be too embarrassed to.
yeah, or your parents' Playboy magazines that you found like hidden under a bed. Like that was it. Or I guess talking to your friends, but it was so limited. So she was so important at that time. And then I think like even important now as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I feel like, I can see these themes in your work and the subject matters you're exploring, but then we jump into Degrassi, whatever it takes. And I mean, I see the through line somewhat in there as well, but this was a documentary, also feature length, which I am going to ask and curious about the difference of working in a feature length documentary. But you directed and co-wrote this, and it was about the Degrassi TV franchise. It premiered at TIFF this year, and it includes interviews with Degrassi creators, cast members, fans, including Drake. This is probably what everyone says, including Drake.
Yeah.
Yeah. What inspired you to take on the Degrassi franchise for a documentary?
Well, Sue Johansson was on Degrassi as Dr. Sally. So is Degrassi in Sex with
Right.
Sue? I don't think so, but we tried so hard to get a clip of it's, two of the young people on Degrassi. They call Dr. Sally and they ask her about wet dreams. It's Yick and Arthur do it. And so we
Okay.
tried to have it in Sex with Sue, and it just didn't work story wise. It is in the Degrassi documentary. So when I finished Sex with Sue, one of the producers, Aaron Sharp, and I were like, oh, what should we make next together? And we're like, oh, Degrassi would be incredible. And it is like all connected. Linda Schuyler is, the co-creator of Degrassi. And so again, it was like a powerful woman behind this incredible franchise.
Mhm.
And she had a memoir that came out called The Mother of All Degrassi at that point. And we like tried to get it, didn't work. Okay, can't do it. And then eventually Erin got connected with Carrie Mudd, our other producer, and she was making it. And then, Erin and Carrie both brought me on. So it was kind of the universe conspired to
Mm,
bring us all together and make
absolutely.
the documentary. But it is quite similar to Sex with Sue because it's, helmed by a woman and kind of like I guess it's a bit different because it's like a TV show that spanned 4 decades, but Sue's career was that long as well. So the breadth of the story was like so big and they were similar in that way.
Yeah, and some of the storylines too, right? There was like the teen pregnancy and stuff like that. So I feel like, it was such an iconic show for our time. I remember, God, Joey
Absolutely.
Jeremiah. Okay.
Joey Jeremiah.
Yeah.
Spike.
Spike's
Yeah.
pregnancy.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it. That's the one.
Um, okay. And then given Degrassi's like long history and cultural impact, what storylines or themes were most important for you to kind of explore in the documentary?
It was the boundary pushing one. So there were, I feel like there's so many episodes of that show. I had the number before in my head, but it were, yeah, the ones that, broke boundaries or pushed boundaries. So it was Spike's pregnancy, like the first time seeing a
Mm-hmm.
pregnant teen on television, or the abortion episode. Yeah, it was all of those first that we wanted to kind of pin. So it's a series and it's a feature, but pin the film in those ones and kind of move from place to place. So that was what we did. And then it was like, what talent could we secure as well? Because then it's like, who can speak to those episodes? So a bit of back and forth, and like, what actors will be in this that can talk about their episodes. And then we kind of decided which ones to be in the film. But it's tough because people love Degrassi and people have real feelings about what's left
Yeah.
out of a film. So that, yeah, it's challenging, but I feel like we picked well, and it was like the ones that talked about things that no one else was talking about at that time.
Right. Were there any ones that you were really fighting for that you that you kind of just like the discussions in the room when you're picking and choosing, because you always have to pick and choose, right? To make sure it all fits.
I don't think like the planning part, no. The editing part, we had to get rid of episodes that were challenging. Like Craig has a bipolar storyline that we really wanted in there, and to talk about mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And then Darcy, she has the sexual assault, and we wanted to talk about that as well, because those are both like themes that have been returned to over and over again in
Mm-hmm.
Degrassi. But it just didn't work. It didn't work. And that's
Mm.
the hard part about editing a film. And you have those time constraints. Like, yeah, if I could make a 5-hour documentary, I could get everything in there and everyone's episode and characters, but it just wasn't possible. So you have to make choices.
Yeah. And I feel like Degrassi was like touching on those, like you say, boundary pushing subjects before a lot of shows were even doing that. So it's great that you were trying to find the breadth of those and fitting them into the documentary. I want to just talk a little bit about your filmmaking in general. Given the subjects you explore, what kind of impact do you hope that your films have on your audiences? Like, how important is social change to you in your work versus simply just telling a narrative?
That's a good question that I haven't thought about in a long time. I feel like I used to think about this a lot. Yeah, I mean, I feel like coming from an academic and like activist background, for me, social change is important. I feel like storytelling is a way to connect to humans that you maybe wouldn't, talk to or encounter, and understand a different perspective.
I even think in your first film, like of Walk the Line, like even just showing
Mhm.
that perspective, it humanizes the people who are coming into the shop, and it is showing a perspective that an audience might not know about or see. Okay, these are like real human beings, and they're beautiful people, and they have this beautiful connection, like Patty with her customers, and all these things. I think that does contribute to social change, when you can show people a different perspective.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. Yeah, I think it is like, I have always thought about as well. I don't necessarily want to make films that are like preaching to the choir
Right.
or for the people that will see it. It's like really important for me when I make a film, like Take a Walk on the Wild Side, to have an entry point so that my Republican uncle can watch this film
Yeah.
and maybe take
Right.
something away from it and change his perspective. Like, I think about that a lot. Sex with Sue, people that maybe aren't the most open to sex. I mean, that's what Sue was all about. And she is so disarming. That is what she was able to achieve. So it's like, okay, if I can get people to watch a film about sex education that are really closed off to it, or to walk away understanding like why someone would get an abortion while maybe that wasn't your
Mhm.
perspective, I feel like that's a big win for me. And then, yeah, similar to Degrassi, because they had these boundary pushing episodes. So they were talking about, I mean, so many different things, but like if we return to abortion, like that we need to be talking about right now too. So to expose people
Yeah.
to that through the guise of like, I don't want to say guise, but through the like entry point of a television show, I think that's important. So I always love documentaries that like maybe seemingly feel a bit fluffy, but
Mm.
are about something much deeper. So like, not that sports documentaries have to be fluffy, but like often I feel like it can be something that feels entertaining, but is actually has like a very deep point to it or messaging behind it, and you're able to understand different perspectives and ideas. That's important to me.
Right,
Mhm.
really expanding the understanding for
Mhm.
somebody who may never even really think about the people that you're talking about.
Mhm.
Because sometimes when it seems too heavy, somebody just won't even watch it. They're like, "Why would I wanna?"
Totally. And I think too, again, that comes from like my academic background where like I had to watch those films all the time that kind of like knock you over the head with a point, and they're academic and they're heady and it's not for everyone. So I'm like, if there is some like entertainment value to what you're watching and it's funny and you're kind of like on a journey watching a film and then you get a much more intellectual point or deeper point, I feel like for me, those are the films that I want to make.
Right, and those are the films that stick with you even long after you finish watching it.
Mhm.
Totally. Yes, for me too. Like I'm like I connect with films on an emotional point. I won't remember the facts. Like my brain doesn't work in that way. So I want people to emotionally connect with the films.
Yeah, it's like that idea of like I feel like even when I watch a movie, a play, I want to feel something, right? So when you leave, it's
Totally.
like you don't
Mhm.
remember, you remember how you felt, right? Lisa, what advice would you give to emerging documentary filmmakers or any artist out there who's trying to make their own work, who are trying to develop their careers, get projects made? Do you have any advice for those emerging artists?
Yeah, I think to just go make things. I feel like that advice is always given and at times it can be frustrating. I remember people telling me that, but I think right now too in the climate where financing is a bit challenging, we do have access to, like even our phones in a way, or cameras are inexpensive. Like certain cameras are inexpensive. So I would say if you want to make documentaries, like think about what's close to you and
Mm.
to try to make it with your friends, make it by yourself. Like Captain John, I don't even know how we would have got a hold of him. I feel because at that point, I don't think he had an email, but I feel like maybe there was a flyer and we called and like got a hold of him and he was open to making a documentary. And I did that with like many different people in places, just being like, hey, I want to make a documentary about you, and just kind of started the process.
Mhm.
So I think you have to put yourself out there to make documentaries, which can be hard, but yeah, or make a documentary about like your mom or your brother, whatever you have access to, I think is the way to go, because you have to like hone your craft and do it over and over and over and over again. So I think the only
Yeah.
way to do that is to just get out there and do it.
Yeah, and we've heard that advice, often, but just picking up the phone, just call and ask, and you don't know what's gonna come of it.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And like sometimes I find some of that advice like can be privileged in a certain way of like, okay, who has the time and the expensive gear to like actually go make films without them being financed? It can feel frustrating. But, I think it's like whatever you can do with the time and space that you have, that you just have to like, even when you're working a full-time job, like I just did it on the weekends, and you have to just like find the space to do it if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, and it sounds like mentorship and community plays a big part. Like, what would you say mentorship in your professional career? What role has that played? Like, was there a mentors along the way that really helped you or gave you advice that you would like to share now?
Yeah, I mean, all along the way, like I mentioned Lauren Grant and Charles Officer. I will say too, like they were mentors for me when I was just getting into the industry, and advice that I would give, because I have had people approach me like all along the way when I was making films, is like you also have to be like organized on top of it, like respect people's time when you're approaching mentors, and like come prepared, have your questions, all of that. So I feel like I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for the two of them. Just in terms of like Lauren, when I was working at the Canadian Film Center, she met me at a coffee shop around the corner. She had a very young baby with her. And she just like offloaded this information that I didn't have. I remember being just like so amazed with her. Especially like she's just a powerhouse producer and she directs and writes now too. But I was like, oh, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, but this all sounds great. And so just like having access to that knowledge is really invaluable. And then, yeah, Charles being an incredible director, just again, like giving me all these even like documents and encouragement. Like that's a big thing, I think, with mentorship that is maybe a little bit not tangible or it's intangible is just feeling like you have people in your corner. Like I remember, being young and going to hot docs and like Charles coming up and giving me a hug and saying hi. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like he thinks I'm important. Like, he is so important in my eyes. So to acknowledge me in that way just like makes you believe in yourself, I think. They were incredible. And I think as much as you can like reach out to people to be mentors for you and then hold up like your side of it. So you come with like, yeah, being organized, being prepared, and not wasting people's time.
What was some of the sort of advice that really stuck with you? I know that there's a lot that they were able to, with the encouragement and just letting you know stuff that you had no idea about. Was there one thing that really sticks out that, when you're really struggling to get something done that you kind of go back to?
I mean, now I have two young kids. So I just think now it's so different for me. Like I think about, sorry, I'm getting emotional thinking about Charles. I don't know if you guys know him, but yeah. Sorry.
It's okay.
Oh yeah, take your time.
Because what I think about too with him is like he would just want to be with his kid, So sorry, my postpartum hormones here.
No, it's totally fine.
No.
I mean, it's such a demanding career, right? And this is a challenge that parents face with kids and in this industry and managing that balance of like having your kids and wanting to be ambitious and do your career. It's very difficult.
Totally,
Right.
totally.
Yeah.
Let me just take away these tears. Yeah.
That's okay.
It's so emotional. Honestly, it gets emotional for me for sure. I mean, there's times when we talk about the artistry and motherhood and trying to find that balance. I mean, it's sort of the whole point of this podcast, but we get emotional listening to others talk about their, not necessarily their struggle, but just like how they're able to navigate it.
Yeah, totally. And Charles was huge for me and he passed away a little while ago and he has, a young child. So I think it just like puts into perspective what's important.
Yes.
And obviously filmmaking is important, but I think I just think of it differently now in terms of like what takes up my time, what I worry about, like what to get through. And that's not to like disregard how I felt before or how people feel without children that are filmmakers. But yeah, I just have a very different perspective of how to get through things now than I did before I had kids.
Absolutely. And the people that come into your life, they shape those thoughts, right? And I think that's that's really special.
Well, we'd love to touch a little bit. Sorry, I know. On
Sorry, guys.
having this career with motherhood.
Yes.
What is that sort of shift been like?
I have a son and I have a daughter, and my son is 2, my daughter is 9 months.
Oh yeah.
I started Degrassi when my son was 4 months old. I like wasn't even in motherhood, I think in a way, that now I can reflect on. What's been interesting for me to now reflect on is like I jumped into that and you don't control the timing when you're like a director for hire. It's like, oh my God, this is an incredible project and like I have to, I have to do it. And so lucky for me, I have a really great husband who is an actor and I think was finishing a show and had some downtime. So he became kind of the primary parent for our son at that point. But I just kept working how I always had been working because I hadn't really transitioned into motherhood in this way. Films are hard. They're long hours. It's lots of work. So we just like I kept doing that how I always had done it. And yeah, my husband watched our son, his mom helped, like we had people that helped a lot. And um but I will say, like, now that I'm on the other end, and I had my daughter while we were making it too, we thought that film would be done
Wow.
quicker than it was, which is always the case with any
Right.
film, especially documentary. But it was meant to be done before I gave birth, but it wasn't. So I had my daughter, took a month off, and then like had to come back to the film to finish it up. And it's challenging to balance all of that early motherhood.
Mhm.
um, I also, my husband is in, it's like Harry Potter Cursed Child. It's a theater show that's traveling across
Yeah.
North America. Well, traveling across the US. So we've been moving for the past year and a half
Wow.
while doing this. So there's just like different facets to my motherhood that are maybe a little bit different.
Right. With two
Um,
artists,
yeah,
two artist
exactly.
parents,
And,
right?
then
Exactly.
two
Two
small children, right? They're young.
Right.
Yeah, that's a
Yes.
lot.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a lot. And I think moving forward, I will probably work in a different way. Like I'm sure everyone, like regardless of what industry you're in, you have children and it changes, right? And
Uh-huh.
I had no idea. Like I don't know. I just it's so different, I think, and more consuming than I thought it would be. And it's like you have the kid and then the kid is here.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I love my kids and like I want to spend so much time with them, and but I love my career too.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've built it, I've been very purposeful in the steps of like where I've gotten to, and
Mhm.
it feels like I'm at this really great place. And now I have to balance it with motherhood. So I think it's so early for me with the kids. It's hard to kind of figure out how to navigate it, but I'm in a really good partnership, and I feel like that makes all the difference. But
For
do you guys
sure.
have young kids?
Oh my God. Well, my
Yes.
kids are
Well, they're not that
older.
young anymore.
Yeah, my kids are
Okay.
older, but they were young once, and it was not easy. So
Right.
I feel like this is the thing, right? We're at, and like Jenny said, like this was kind of the idea of the podcast, which is, we're also ambitious. We
Mhm.
have career goals, and it's like you're giving yourself to so many different. It's like your kids, and then you have your work, and and then as you get older, it's your parents. They're going through their own aging process, so you are pulled in so many different directions. And I'm at the phase of my life too where I'm thinking about working smarter, not harder, so that I can make my
Mhm.
life a little more easier while I still pursue all these things. Because I am not just a mom, I'm also an artist. I'm also a wife. I'm also. So,
Right.
I think this is the challenges that we face as parents, right, Ginny?
Right. Yeah. Well, being able to hold on to
Yeah.
ourselves,
Yeah.
Mm.
right? A lot of
Yes.
the times we feel like we are just playing all these different roles, and it's just like coming back to ourselves and being like, okay,
Yeah. What do I
there is
want?
something inside here that I need
Yeah.
to cherish
Yeah.
before it just like disappears. And I feel like depending on the phase of your life, phase of your children,
Yeah.
Mm.
it changes. But I think, and we had Deanie Petty on a while back, and just the advice that she gave was just like,
Mm.
you really do need to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Mm.
And with that, it allows you to show up better for all the other people in your life, but all the other, you know, facets of what you do and what you can bring to the world.
Lisa, I think I see a future documentary here.
I know. I keep thinking about a motherhood and I'm like, oh, I'm too in it. I'm too in it right now to like think through it properly. But yes,
Uh,
agreed. I also think like the advice that I keep thinking about, like I am not in the place to give advice on balancing any of this right now, but is like it's all seasons. Like I just keep
mhm,
being like,
mhm,
it's a season. My kids are really young, like they
mhm.
really need me at this point, and spending
Totally.
those moments with them. And I think what's like kind of shocked me about motherhood, but is so amazing, is like that the day is just like this.
Yeah.
I have
Up
never
and
been
down,
like
up and down.
all
Yeah.
the different emotions in a day, and like including like awe with what they do. Like sometimes I'm like, I'm so frustrated, like trying to get them out the door. And then, my son will sing a little song or like say, I love you, mom, or whatever. And it's like the best moment that I've ever had in my whole life.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, we don't need to go anywhere now.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
We'll just stay
But
here. Yeah.
yes, exactly. But I try to like kind of apply that to like a broader perspective with my career in terms of like, yeah, there'll just be moments like there's up and downs. Like even if I take a pause right now for a second to be with my
Absolutely.
kids for a few months, it's not like I'm giving it up, but it's hard. It's hard to like as an entrepreneur, as an artist, you have to look for that next thing over and
Right.
over. So even to like mentally allow myself to take a pause has been a challenge.
Yes. And I think that's the thing
Yeah.
too. Like actors face this a lot. It's like when you're not working, are you an actor? Like, are you, well, like, yeah, you'll always be an artist, right? Like you've done the work,
Mhm.
you've done the training, it's in you. Just because you're not doing it right this second doesn't mean you aren't that thing. And you can always come back to it. And life feeds art. So anything that you're going through in
Totally.
life and with
True.
your kids is going to feed your work later on. It's just experience that you're bringing in at a different stage, We are reaching our hour. So I'm going to ask you the final question that we ask all of our guests. And it's very interesting after this conversation. When you hear the phrase hitting her mark, what does that mean for you? And how do you define success in your life? And it can be personally, professionally, however you interpret that phrase.
I feel like, okay, well, right now, at this moment in time, for me, hitting her mark or success means health in a variety of different ways. Like, I just keep thinking about this and how important it is to be healthy mentally, physically, for children, for careers. I think, like, getting a little bit older too, you think about it more, and it's like you're not going to have anything without health.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of leaps to mind. Maybe that's a boring answer, but
No.
yeah, I feel like that's it. And there are things that just kind of underline success, right? So if you aren't healthy in different ways, then I think, Jenny, like you said with Dina Petty, like taking care of yourself, right? Like that's what it is. You have to like, I know this is corny, but the whole like put your oxygen mask on first.
Yeah.
Because if not, you can't do anything else. So, when I was younger, before I had kids, I was just kind of running in this way that you could be burnt out, right? Like, who cares? You could like eat unhealthy. You don't need to sleep.
Right.
You can
I'll
do the
sleep
work.
a month later.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Totally. You can work. I used to just sit and work for like 10 hours a day, and it's just not possible for me to do that anymore. So, yeah, I think like changing one's perspective on health and what's important.
I think that's
Yeah,
a great
that's a great answer.
Yeah. 100%.
Absolutely.
Jenny. Thank you so much, Lisa. Really appreciate you coming onto the
thank
show with
you.
us. That was a great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That's fun.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to Hitting Her Mark. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. For more content and updates, follow us on Instagram at Hitting Her Mark.